At some point in your career, without anyone telling you explicitly, you understood that there was a certain way you were supposed to look, a certain kind of car, a certain address, certain clothes, certain restaurants, certain ways of presenting yourself in professional and social settings. Nobody handed you a list. You just absorbed it. From the people around you, from what got noticed, from what seemed to signal the right things about who you were becoming. And then quietly, you started paying for it. Every month, without ever sitting down and deciding to, without ever labeling what you were actually doing. So let me ask you something directly, because I think it's worth sitting with honestly for a moment. How much of what you spend every month is actually for you? And how much is for the version of you that other people see? Most people, if they're genuinely honest about this, find that a surprisingly large portion of their spending exists not because it improves their life in any meaningful way, but because it signals something about their life to the people around them. The car that's nicer than it needs to be, the apartment in the address that sounds right, the clothes at a price point that communicates something, the restaurants where being seen matters as much as the food. That portion of your spending has a name, even if you've never labeled it. It's your appearance budget, and there's a reasonable chance it's the most expensive thing you're paying for, and the thing most directly standing between you and the financial position you're actually trying to reach. Today, I want to show you what it is, where it hides, what it costs, and why the people who stopped caring about it tend to be the ones who end up with the most. What the appearance budget actually is. Let me define this precisely, because it's not about spending on nice things generally. It's about something more specific. Your appearance budget is the total premium you pay across every spending category, above what that category would cost if its only purpose were function. Notice I said premium, not total cost. You need clothes. That's not appearance spending. The premium you pay above what functional, appropriate clothes would cost, that's appearance spending. You need transportation. That's not appearance spending. The premium above what reliable transportation would cost. That's appearance spending. You need shelter, you need food, you need to participate in social and professional life. All of those have a functional baseline. Everything above that baseline that exists primarily to communicate something about your status, that's your appearance budget. The reason most people have never calculated this number is that it doesn't live in one place. It's distributed across every category in your spending in small increments that each feel individually reasonable. The clothing that's $400 a month instead of $150, $250 in appearance premium. The car payment that's $800 a month when a reliable used car would be $200 to $600 in appearance premium. The apartment that's $2,500 a month when something equivalent in a less prestigious address would be $1,800 to $700 in appearance premium. The restaurants and social spending at a price point that's about being in certain places as much as eating certain food, $300 in appearance premium. Add those up, $250 plus $600 plus $700 plus $300. That's $1,850 a month in spending that exists not to serve your life, but to signal something about it. $1,850 a month, $22,200 a year. And before you dismiss that as an overestimate, for many professionals in their 30s and 40s living in any reasonably competitive city, this number is conservative. Now, here's what that number means in terms of what it's actually costing you. $1,850 a month, invested consistently at 8% annual returns over 20 years, becomes approximately $1,090,000. $1 million from stopping the appearance premium alone, without changing your income, without finding a better investment strategy, without doing anything except redirecting money from signaling to building. That's the cost of looking successful, not the price of the clothes or the car payment in isolation. The compounded lifetime cost of the premium that exists for an audience that, as we'll get to, is barely paying attention. Why your brain does this. Before we talk about solutions, I want to spend some time on why this happens. Because if you understand the mechanism, you can work with it instead of just fighting it. Status signaling is not a character flaw. It's not vanity or shallowness or lack of financial discipline. It's a deeply hardwired human behavior that served a real purpose for a very long time. In the environments where human psychology developed, visible resources genuinely correlated with survival. The person who could signal abundance, who could show that they had food, shelter, strength, social connections, had genuine advantages. Others wanted to ally with them. Potential partners found them more attractive. The group was more likely to include them in cooperative arrangements. Your modern brain has the same hardware. And so when you buy a car that signals a certain level of success, or wear clothes that communicate a certain professional status, or live at an address that carries certain social associations, your brain is running ancient code in a modern environment. The feeling of wanting to signal is real. The reward of having signaled is real. What's changed is the context. In the ancestral environment, the people you were signaling to were the people you actually lived with and depended on. Their perception of you had direct material consequences for your life. Now, you're largely signaling to colleagues you'll have limited contact with outside of work, to strangers on the street who will never see you again, to people at social events who are mostly thinking about their own appearance, and to a curated feed of online acquaintances whose opinion of your car or your neighborhood has essentially zero impact on your actual life. The signal is expensive. The audience isn't watching. There's actually a name for the cognitive bias at work here. It's called the spotlight effect. Research consistently shows that people dramatically overestimate how much others notice, observe, and remember things about their appearance and behavior. You walk into a room in a new outfit convinced everyone will notice. Most people don't. You drive up in a new car, certain your colleagues will register the upgrade. Most of them are thinking about their own problems. This is not because people are indifferent or unkind. It's because everyone is the star of their own show, and the supporting cast has limited bandwidth to track the details of yours. The spotlight you feel on you is mostly in your head, and you're paying thousands of dollars a month to perform for an audience that isn't really watching. The self-signaling problem. Here's a dimension of this that's a little more uncomfortable to examine, and I want to address it directly because I think it matters. Not all appearance spending is for other people. Some of it is for you. The expensive suit that makes you feel more confident walking into a negotiation. The car that makes your commute feel like it reflects who you are. The apartment address that makes you feel like you've arrived somewhere real. These feelings are genuine. The confidence, the sense of self-worth, the feeling of having earned something. These are real psychological experiences with real value. I'm not dismissing them. If appearance spending genuinely makes you function better, feel better, and perform better in ways that have measurable effects on your outcomes, there's an argument to be made that it's paying for itself. But here's the question worth asking honestly. Is the confidence you get from the expensive suit a confidence that's portable? Does it travel with you when you take it off, or does it live in the suit, so that without it, the confidence disappears? Because there's a meaningful difference between confidence that comes from capability, from knowing you're competent, prepared, and have done the work, and confidence that comes from objects. The first kind compounds. It builds on itself, grows over time, and doesn't require ongoing investment to maintain. The second kind needs to be renewed constantly. Every time the car gets a little older, every time the clothes start to feel dated, every time someone around you upgrades, the borrowed confidence starts to deflate, and you find yourself reaching for the next thing to restore it. Borrowed confidence is expensive, and it's fragile in ways that real confidence isn't. The question is not whether external signals can make you feel good. They clearly can. The question is whether you want your sense of competence and self-worth to be dependent on objects that depreciate, or whether you want to build the kind of confidence that doesn't need a monthly payment to maintain it. The professional necessity myth. Let me address the objection that comes up every time this conversation gets serious, because it's the one that has the most surface plausibility. In my field, appearance matters. Clients judge you. You can't walk into certain rooms looking like you don't belong there. Appearance is a professional necessity. There's some truth in this. I won't pretend otherwise. There is a threshold of professional appearance below which you genuinely do communicate something unhelpful. Disrespect for the context, lack of attention to detail, or simply not understanding the environment you're operating in. But there's a significant difference between the threshold and the premium. And most people's appearance spending is not near the threshold. It's somewhere far above it, in territory that's about status signaling rather than professional credibility. The threshold is clean, well-fitted, appropriate for context. It's a $300 suit, not a $1,200 one. It's a car that runs reliably and looks presentable, not one that announces your income. It's an address that's convenient and safe, not one that's in the zip code that carries the right associations. Everything above the threshold is premium, and the premium, in most professional contexts, buys you far less than you think it does. Here's something worth noticing about the people who have achieved the most sustained success across most fields. They tend to dress unremarkably. Warren Buffett has lived in the same house since 1958, a house he bought for $31,500. Mark Zuckerberg famously rotates through the same gray t-shirt. The most respected professionals in most industries, the ones whose competence is genuinely unquestioned, tend not to rely heavily on appearance signals because they don't need to. And here's why that's true at a deeper level. Appearance signals are most important to people whose competence signal is weakest. When you're genuinely excellent at what you do, when your track record speaks clearly, when the people who matter to your career already know what you deliver, the need to signal through appearance diminishes. The people most invested in looking successful are often the ones who feel least certain about being it. The car, the clothes, the address, these are often compensating for something, and compensating for something is expensive. The escalation trap. Here's the dynamic that makes appearance spending particularly damaging over time, and why the cost compounds in ways that are hard to see until you're deep into it. Appearance spending escalates automatically with income, and once it escalates, it almost never comes back down. Early in your career, a certain level of appearance is expected, and a certain level is aspirational. As your income grows, the baseline of what's expected rises with it. The car that was fine at 25 feels inadequate at 35. The apartment that was acceptable at 30 doesn't feel right at 40. The wardrobe that worked at one level of seniority doesn't signal correctly at the next one. Every raise, every promotion, every step up in professional status comes with an implicit invitation to upgrade the appearance budget to match. And most people accept that invitation automatically, without deciding to, because declining it feels like failing to acknowledge the progress you've made. The result is that income growth and appearance spending grow in parallel, which means the gap between what you earn and what you keep, the gap where wealth actually gets built, never widens. You earn more. You spend more on appearance. The margin stays roughly constant. The wealth doesn't accumulate. And here's what makes this particularly hard to reverse. Once a level of appearance spending becomes part of your identity, once you've driven a certain car for 3 years and worn a certain wardrobe for 5 years and lived at a certain address for a decade, stepping back from any of it doesn't feel like a financial optimization. It feels like going backward, like admitting failure, like losing something that has become part of how you understand yourself. The identity lock-in is real. Every year of appearance spending makes the cost of stopping feel higher, even when the cost of continuing is objectively larger. This is how people end up with lifestyles they can't afford and can't change. Not because they made one bad decision, but because they made a long series of small ones that compounded into a trap. What it's really costing you. Let me go beyond the direct financial cost, because I think there's an even larger cost that doesn't show up in the math. The appearance budget doesn't just drain money, it drains options. When your lifestyle is sized to require a certain income to maintain, when the car payment and the rent and the wardrobe and the social spending all together require you to keep earning at or above your current level, you lose leverage. Real leverage. The kind that matters. You can't negotiate aggressively for a raise when you need the job more than the job needs you. You can't walk away from a situation that's damaging you professionally or personally when your fixed costs are already consuming your income. You can't take a career risk, start something, try something different, step back temporarily to invest in a bigger leap forward when the appearance budget has committed your income before it arrives. The people who have the most career leverage, who can walk into negotiations from strength, who can afford to say no, who can take risks that others can't, tend to be the ones who kept their lifestyle significantly below their income. Not because they're cheap or miserly, but because they understood early that financial margin is career leverage. Every dollar in the appearance budget is a dollar that reduces your options. Every month of appearance spending is a month of reduced ability to make choices based on what you actually want, rather than what you can afford to risk. The appearance budget doesn't just cost money, it costs the freedom that money is supposed to buy. The quiet ones. I want to tell you about a pattern that shows up consistently when you look at people who have built genuine, durable wealth and success over time. They tend to be quiet about it. Not because they're hiding something or being falsely modest, but because at some point, often after years of the appearance game, they stopped needing the signal. They had enough of the actual thing that the performance of it became unnecessary. Real success doesn't need to announce itself. The confidence that comes from genuine capability doesn't require a car or a wardrobe to stay inflated. The security that comes from actual financial resilience doesn't need an address to validate it. When the substance is real, the performance becomes optional. And when it becomes optional, most people stop doing it, because it turns out they didn't really want to be doing it in the first place. It was never about the clothes or the car. It was about wanting to feel a certain way. And once you feel that way for real, the props become irrelevant. The paradox at the center of all of this is worth sitting with. The people who spend the least on looking successful tend to be the ones who become the most successful. Not because spending less caused the success, the causation runs the other way, but because the same decision that redirected appearance spending into wealth building also redirected psychological energy from performance into substance, from signaling into doing, from convincing others into actually becoming. Every dollar you spend performing success is a dollar you didn't spend building it. That's not a metaphor. That's the math. What to actually do, let me be practical, because I don't want to leave you with a diagnosis without a direction. The first step is the audit, and it has to be honest. Go through your last 3 months of spending and identify in each category what the functional baseline would be and what you're actually spending. The difference in each category is your appearance premium. Add them up. See the number clearly. Most people who do this honestly are surprised by the total, not because any individual line is outrageous, but because the aggregate is larger than they realized. Seeing it as a single number, the appearance budget, changes how it feels. The second step is asking, for each premium, who it's actually for. Is it for you in a way that genuinely improves your life and your outcomes? Or is it for an audience that, as we've established, is largely not watching? Some appearance spending will survive that question. The suit that genuinely makes you more confident in high-stakes situations. The apartment in a neighborhood that genuinely makes your daily life better in ways beyond the address. Keep those. They're worth the premium. Most of it won't survive the question. The car upgrade that nobody at work has commented on. The wardrobe level that's above what the context actually requires. The address premium in a zip code that means something on paper but doesn't actually improve your daily experience. That's the money to redirect. Not all at once. Identity shifts take time, and trying to change everything immediately is how you generate resistance that makes you give up. But systematically, over time, in ways that replace the appearance budget with an investment in something real. The third step, and this is the hardest one, is redefining what success looks like to you privately, separate from what it looks like to anyone else, because here's the thing about appearance spending. It never ends if the goal is to look successful to other people. There's always a higher level. There's always someone with a nicer car, a better address, more expensive clothes. The external benchmark is infinite. The game cannot be won. But the internal benchmark, the version of success defined by financial freedom, by genuine options, by the ability to make choices based on what you want rather than what you can afford to risk, that's achievable. That has a finish line. And once you cross it, nobody can take it from you by buying a nicer car than yours. That's what's on the other side of the appearance budget. Not deprivation, not living like you're poor when you're not. Just redirecting the premium, the part that exists for an audience that isn't watching, toward the version of success that actually belongs to you.